All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series. But this week's episode is special because obviously the QA is always the important part, but on the last Monday of every month, we try to do just a more casual stream. I call it my pajama podcast. I am actually wearing what I slept in, but I threw a hoodie on top of that. It's surprisingly cold in my office today. We got like May gray and June gloom happening here in Southern California. But I already see an incredible list of names here popping up in the chat. The chat is gonna kind of lead us wherever we want to go to talk about tech stuff. I've got a couple little feeder stories that can keep some conversations going, but if we want to spend the entire episode just talking about X-Men 97, I would be fine with that too. Like, hey, remember that one time where that one guy did that one thing? That was awesome. You remember that? I remember that because it was rad. Very much enjoyed my time wrapping up X-Men 97. So we've got Malik, we've got Farhan, Michael Corcoran, Frisco Flame popping up. We got Cedric Owens, J-Man 150, Bray Gray, Jimmy Fire Dragon, Michael Corcoran, Aditya Anil, Fat Produce, Greg All, Simon Says Hypno, Darren Moore and John Gow, Al Sabakli, Q3 Becker, who someone just pointed out to me is that's actually Quebecer. But I've been saying Q3 Becker for so long that I have to keep calling Q3 Becker Q3 Becker. We've got Mr. Pogue. We've got Ron Guido, 2 Turbo, Kapakash. We have a crew here today. J-Man 150 already saying you got to stay hydrated. So, folks, this is also going to be another slightly shorter show. My voice is feeling a lot better, but I picked up some kind of infection when I first blew out my voice. On top of that, I think I got some kind of head cold, and this cough I can't shake it, and I keep blowing my voice out because I am going to do just a little touch of housekeeping just to list off because I had a really busy week last week. We were finally able to publish on a bunch of videos, so you're going to hear me doing a lot of this as I reach for the mute button before I cough directly into the microphone, and I'm going to try and avoid wrecking my voice again. But it's the casual podcast. We don't have to do the same full like news block and gadget block and all the different news stories and stuff like that. So, Kapakash is saying Juan with the specs. So I'm giving this a shot. I was complaining about some eye strain because I spend all day, every day staring at multiple glowing rectangles, computer monitors and laptop monitors and phone screens and tablet screens. And just through the grapevine, that got me in touch with the folks at Gunner. So these are Gunners. I don't actually have a prescription. I'm just a touch farsighted, but I haven't needed like corrective lens prescription glasses. But the folks at Gunner sent out a couple pairs of their new Muir. I don't know how you pronounce that. Muir wood frame. So there's a carbon fiber frame and wood paneling on them. And of course, the whole thing on Gunners is that they're like for gamers and they reduce blue light and they're supposed to help with eye strain. So I'm going to give them a shot and just see how we go. But this frame style, and especially the wood paneling on this frame style, please let me know in the chat. I think these kind of suit me. Like, I think this is a good look. I have to be really careful because now that I'm growing out a scruffy beard and I'm wearing glasses, I'm starting to look like TK Bay. So I'm not trying to rip off TK's look, but I'm starting to rip off TK's look. So people are going to tune into the stream and say, like, why is this doofus wearing his own merch with his own face on his own hat? I'm going to have to be really careful with that. Oh no! Oh, dang it. I coughed and then I forgot to turn the mic on. Cedric Owens was saying their tortoise pattern looks great too. I was just telling a little riff of a story just while we were at Newegg. We did a Gunner partnership, but they mostly worked with Trish. And I was like, hey guys, I want to wear some Gunners too. And they're like, nah, we're good. We got Trish. Hold on. One more cough and I promise I'll turn the mic back on after that. Okay, so get this out of the way here. Michael Corcoran, they look cool. Scientific American says they have no short-term efficacy, but hey, at least they look cool. So I don't know. I mean, that's just it. I like that there is, like, if I move them on and off, there is some slight optical difference in how I see light and color. And to me, it's kind of like the fad. If you were a kid born in the 80s and growing up in the late 80s and early 90s, you probably had parents who were obsessed with things like blue blocker sunglasses. And the first time you put them on, there was a novelty in that the sky turned like burnt orange. But no blue light was going to get to your eyeballs, that horrible, horrible blue light. So at least something with like a UV rating that I actually do care about. I had to do a deep dive on UV lighting science because I have psoriasis, and one of the treatments for psoriasis is UV lights. And again, just going through and saying like, okay, well, this is potentially very unhealthy for you if you don't do it right. So at least like kind of understanding blocking UV light that's hitting the most sensitive skin on your face, like that really, really delicate eyelid tissue and around your face. Whether or not this helps reduce the eye strain, I'm going to give them a try and see if it's the placebo effect or if it's just the novelty of wearing glasses again. I don't know. I won't really be able to pick apart my own brain with any kind of scientific rigor. It's a sample size of one, me. And I absolutely am not an unbiased participant in this study. Yeah, Malik, if you remember blue blockers, man, those commercials were hot. People were flipping out. Oh my God, I put these things on my face and the greens are so lush and the colors are so vibrant, but everything's orange. I love it. So, we've got, hey, Bionic Scoop saying, we've got a wide open show. I feel we can hang out for an hour. I don't want to hold anybody from their Memorial Day plans. My wife was out of town, and Lex and I had a whole daddy-daughter weekend where we wrote out a list and we planned like every minute of every day. We went shopping, we made pancakes. That little girl yesterday, I took her out to a state park, and it's actually where my buddy Andrew, Fat Produce in the chat, we finally met face to face. And you were like, hey, do you want to go on just a ridiculously long hike? And I got her out at a state park that had done a lot of filming. And that little 8-year-old did a 5-mile hike and was just like, let's do this. Let's go. And we were doing not technical stuff, but lots of little rocky hill climbs and going down to creek beds. And we crossed a couple bridges. I mean, it was awesome. She was a trooper. But Marie's back today, and so Marie and Lex are hanging out right now, and my daughter is running my wife hard on, let's play Fairy Princess. And my wife is running around the living room with a pair of fairy wings on right now, just to have a good time with Lex. It's pretty incredible. I'm going to try and do this. I don't think it's going to work very well because my audio issues still won't patch in the Stream Deck. But I do have to shout out Simon Says Hypno, subscribed with Prime. Simon has been subscribed for 36 months. Simon, that's our 3-year anniversary. I don't know what the appropriate gift is for a 3-year anniversary, but I'm going to try and give you a really lousy trombone fanfare of glory. And thank you so much for the sub, and of course for everybody who is out there subscribing and sharing content across social media and just really supporting their favorite content creators. It's a really big deal. something we've been talking about a lot, as so many of these YouTube channels are facing some pretty significant burnout. So, oh, Aditya, no, I think you're right. Aditya says, I think the 3-year anniversary gift is a corn dog with mustard dip. Not with mustard, but with a dip facsimile of mustard. So, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this quick stream of housekeeping just because I got to pat myself on the back. For a couple weeks, I've been getting a video out here or like, kind of an article or an editorial. I've got a bunch of backlog on Patreon. Right now, I've got several written articles on Patreon that still have not made it to my main public site, somegadgetguy.com. But last week was pretty full. Here, let me screen share real quick. First up, the Geekom A8 Mini PC. This thing's running a Ryzen 9, and not last gen Ryzen 9. It's running the current 8945HS. And not as part of this, but just in general, because we want to talk about X Elite or we want to talk about Windows on ARM, we can definitely do that. It is hilarious. Microsoft has thrown Intel and AMD completely under the bus. For the last year, we've been hyping up AI PCs, which basically means a Core i7 or Ryzen 7 equivalent machine, or more powerful, but it's got an NPU now. And that's it. That's all was required for this last generation of AI PCs. But then Microsoft took the wraps off of the new 24H2 update and Windows Copilot and Windows Recall. And so now to get a Copilot Plus badge, you have to have a more powerful NPU. Completely severing a year of AI PC marketing. Now Intel and AMD have a whole series of chips out on the market right now. Current gen, stupid powerful laptop chips that don't get all of the newest, latest, and greatest and all of the goodies. So all of the OEMs and manufacturers who want this Copilot Plus branding and to sell the consumers the AI because the shareholders really want to see the AI, none of these chips work. None of these chips do it. This is maybe the fastest devaluing of current and previous gen tech I've ever seen in Windows land. This is a sea change in Windows PC, in Windows laptops, in PC computing. If you want to start getting awesome deals on current generation, stupid, overkill, powerful PCs and laptops, keep an eye on this market. HP has changed up their entire product catalog. They've changed all of the names of their products, and so the current generation of HP devices is already being devalued. It is mind-blowing. So, I did a review on this mini PC. It's the top of the line. It's the most powerful Ryzen chip that AMD sells, 8945HS. It's got a decently powerful NPU also. It's not like you're completely missing out on things like plugins for photo and video editing. Like, this is a monster chip. And with 32 gigabytes of RAM and 2 terabytes of storage, it is really easy to shop this thing for under $900. Under $900. It's dumb. Anyway, moving right along. Oh, there we go. My screen share was way off. All right, so there's the Geekom A8. We can also talk about this too. I did a little short. On YouTube, this short did no traffic at all. But on Instagram, this thing blew up and is now in like 200,000 views and is like, I've gotten 2,000 new followers on Instagram because I'm talking trash about Apple. But there's this problem where Google did this thing where it tracked everybody's Wi-Fi SSIDs, and that's kind of scummy. And we all agreed that's kind of scummy. You're making your product, your mapping products better, sort of while kind of compromising everybody's Wi-Fi data and location data, and it's not really good. Well, apparently Apple's been doing this and doing it even more, like an even more aggressive version of what Google was doing. So of course, now that this news has come out, I have dozens and dozens of Apple stands going, oh, but it's different, and oh, and Apple does this, and who even cares about privacy? And if you use a smartphone, you're being tracked anyway. And so one person was even tagging me like, I know this is a short, but I think you framed this in a very irresponsible way. And like I was like, well, tell me what information would there be? And he quotes from the scientific study that I linked to him, like all of these steps to protect your Wi-Fi and your location data. And I was like, cool, go turn that into a video, because that's exactly what I said in 15 seconds. But you just cut and paste 5 paragraphs of text from the article that I linked you, or from the study that I linked you. So acting like I'm somehow being responsible by telling people what's in the study, oh, but what you did is made it sound serious. Because it is. Because when Google did it, we agreed it was bad. And now that Apple's doing something even more aggressive, oh, but now it's different. Now it's different when Apple does it for some reason. So yeah, we can chat about that too, because let me tell you, this isn't even going viral. It's just, it found this weird nudge of traffic on Instagram, and I cannot go through those comments. I tapped out pretty quick. Moving on, I did do a follow-up video on the Windows 11 24H2 update, and this is the update that added Prism, so better emulation and significant performance improvements on ARM chips. Now, everything that Microsoft has been saying is this is designed to improve performance on X Elite. But if you have an older Windows on ARM tablet or laptop, I am getting so many awesome comments from people on Surface X, on Lenovo's. There was a Dell ARM PC. And then, of course, a couple people have popped out like, oh, I've got the Robo Incala too. All of us have seen noticeable performance uplifts. Not just like, oh, well, like 10% CPU compute power in Geekbench. Like, programs are loading better, there's better application support, more apps are finally seeing the GPU, so you get the proper GPU support in a bunch of apps. I saw enough of an uplift in performance that I could bump up the resolution in Control and still be playing pretty close to 30 frames per second on a last generation Snapdragon fanless ARM chip mini PC. I mean, tablet PC. That is insane. So anyway, it's so rare that we see these kinds of performance uplifts with massive Windows updates, and we almost never see it with Windows on ARM. Windows on ARM has been this steady sort of iterative improvement for support. This has been the biggest single improvement in performance I've seen since testing the first Surface X. So I'm very excited. And I think it's funny because I still get comments from people who are saying things like, boy, I sure hope Microsoft really supports Windows on ARM this time. And you're like, there's basically no distinction. There is no difference. It seems like Microsoft last year with the Surface Pro 9 SQ3 kind of tore off that there was a difference. It was a Surface Pro 9 and a Surface Pro 9. It was all Surface Pro 9. It seems this is just Windows. So saying like, oh, I hope they commit to ARM is kind of like saying, boy, I hope Microsoft commits to supporting Office. Sure would be crappy if they stopped supporting Office. It's all the same now. We've got Prism. We've had really good emulation support. It's been pretty great. I'm talking way too much for housekeeping. Let's just run these down. I also finally got this published. It's the Geetac V110 G7 rugged convertible laptop. If you need something military grade, this thing is awesome. I've always loved rugged devices like Panasonic's, and I did a recent Unihertz rugged phone. This Geetac is phenomenal. It's like you're walking around with RoboCop's lunchbox. And then I did kind of a roundup after all of the announcements for all the different AI laptops coming out from Acer, Dell, Asus, Lenovo, HP, and Samsung, oh, and Microsoft. I did a live recording. I did a live recording of going through all of the different websites to see what they were offering, and it kind of turned into a little bit of a buyer's guide. Not, you should buy an HP over a Dell, but when you go through all these websites, you start seeing right away This is a little bit different than how we've been shopping AMD and Intel laptops. And I don't think any of these companies have done a great job of explaining to consumers some of these small differences and how Qualcomm has a completely different tiering for how they rate the performance of their chips. And it's very frustrating to me that a number of these sites, when you just go to the buying page, it'll say something generic like 12 core X Elite chip. But there are 3 different models of the X Elite. There's the 78 version, the 80 version, and the 84. So which one's in this laptop? And I can't find an answer to that. A lot of them are going with the 80. Some people are saying, well, the Surface is going to get the 84. Other places are saying, no, the Surface is going to get the 80. So far, I think like Dell, HP, and Samsung are the ones that have actually listed out the full I can't remember now. I'm trying to do this from memory, and it's easier if you just kind of go through the video where I literally show you the pages. But it's a consumer education issue. And when we see how expensive some of these configurations are, it's very disappointing that we're kind of cloaking all of this stuff, kind of obfuscating what are some important structural differences in the performance of these chips. And that means you can say it's X Elite and charge a lot of money, but maybe you're getting the lowest tier X Elite. And I don't think that's okay. You can't find the right price to performance if we don't know what's actually inside of it. And again, it's kind of similar to the way that Apple will gloss over a lot of their actual technical specifications. Like I'll never forgive Apple for that stupid iPhone 12 camera difference in the Pro. The iPhone 12 Pro had a smaller main camera sensor than the iPhone 12 Pro Max, but they were both 12 megapixel sensors. Both professional 12 megapixel cameras. Then you had a whole bunch of tech reviewer bootlickers out there who were like, oh, well, I mean, because of the processing, it's pretty much the same thing. But that same year, they also savaged the Pixel 5 for having the same size camera sensor as the iPhone 12 Pro. I'm repeating myself, and I don't have the voice to do that. We got to do another one here. Hold on. So I found Simon. Oh no, where's my chat is being really, really twitchy. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Michael Corcoran subscribed with Prime, subscribed for 33 months. So just right behind Simon Says Hypno, we're getting real close to your 3-year anniversary too. I really need to come up with like stickers or a button or something like that. Someone who's got some ideas on that, please hit me up, because I'm so bad at doing the Twitch that something like that, and then maybe through the Patreon we can start giving out like little awards and stuff like that. I need the help because I'm not good at it. But thank you so much for the support. And again, one terribly blasted trombone fanfare of glory. This is for you. And again, thank you everybody who's supporting, and make sure you're out there, like sharing content from your favorite content creators and just joining these conversations, because it means a lot. Every algorithm is kind of against us right now. Let me take another drink of coffee, and we're done with housekeeping. We can move into something else. Hold on one sec. All right, I just caught this from Simon Says Hypno. A Mac Mini style X Elite mini PC would be amazing. So right now, I think the Qualcomm developer kit is publicly available, like for pre-order, but anyone can buy it. You don't have to have any weird developer credentials, and I think that's $1,000. So again, we're looking at a Nook style mini PC running the X Elite, and I don't know what variation on that chip, but I think it starts at $999. So that's already out as a dev kit, which means anyone who's making a mini PC already has a template that they can look at, and they can probably reach out to Qualcomm and say, hey, we just want to rebadge this. Can we just resell exactly what you've already made? And there will be a bit of a markup, and we'll do some other stuff on that to make it look a little nicer. I will be shocked if a company like Asus or who else might do this? You know what? Maybe this is kind of out there, but maybe a company like Zotac, because Zotac has done tons of not only small form factor PCs, but like the really ultra low power fanless systems too. Like Zotac's collection of mini PCs is kind of insane. I'd be shocked if we don't see low power mini PCs, ARM powered chips in an Asus, because Asus owns the Nook label now, or in a Zotac small form factor by the end of the year. At least the announcement. Maybe they ship in early 2025. It's all about yield and how many of these chips can really make it out into the market. And then there's a whole bunch of X Plus. And this is driving me crazy because we've seen a few X Plus laptops announced, and that's sort of the lower tier. There's X Plus and there's X Elite. But none of those X Plus machines are coming with more RAM than 16 gig. And that's kind of like saying, hey, I don't need a Core i9. What if I step down to a Core i7 or a Core i5, but I have no options for more RAM? What if you need much better multitasking capabilities, but you don't need the top-end horsepower? Well, you kind of need RAM. So that's the kind of stuff that's just, I'm dying right now. It's so new, it's so fresh. None of the OEMs are really looking at like the actual different consumer segments and how they can fulfill those specific roles. It's just, we've got to get our X Elite AI chip out there, and they're all hyped up on the AI. So they really are focusing more on the most expensive SKUs to launch. It's tough because, like, exactly, a Mac Mini, but with more RAM, becomes a very tantalizing prospect for a Windows Mini PC. Sorry, I'm way behind on... Oh! Farhan's got it. Okay, so June 18 is when it's going to ship. Price tag is $899, not $999. 32 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage. That is a lot cheaper than buying an M2 Pro Mac Mini. That's pretty good. And thanks for the assist on that, Farhan. Let me scroll down. So I don't know if you mean in the mini PC or in the laptop. Simon Says Hypno says the highest end X Elite is 512 gig and 32. Oh, I think you mean for the mini PC. So far, I think only Microsoft has done the Surface laptop with 64 gigs of RAM. So that's spendy. I think that's a $2,500 machine. But it's only 1 terabyte of storage. That kills me. But especially if you think you're going to be digging into some of this MPU stuff, once you start feeding models through the MPU on a machine, it starts eating RAM. It's why so many of our phones have significantly more RAM than they did 2 years ago. The more you utilize language learning models, Gen AI, and then just anything MPU related, you've got to feed that model information, all of those parameters, and utilizing all of your tokens. I hate AI lingo. It's so obtuse for no good reason. You just need tons of RAM. That's why there's a version of the OnePlus 12 in China that has like 20 gigs of RAM on it. It does nothing for your day-to-day smartphone needs, but the second you start feeding it any kind of LLM, it eats RAM. So if you think you're going to be digging into this, like 16 gigabytes of RAM is a very good quantity of RAM for a general all-purpose Windows machine. That's great performance, and you can get away with having more than 3 browser tabs open in Chrome. But the more you start leaning into this expanded NPU use, well, that RAM starts getting leaner. So I would recommend, especially because none of these machines that are selling initially, you can upgrade the RAM. All of them are now just RAM chips soldered directly into the motherboards. I would try to move up to 32. That's why I'm so frustrated with the X Plus chips all being stuck at 16. And it's why I'm so frustrated with Samsung also being stuck at 16. Because you have nowhere to go with software. And if Microsoft keeps pushing more AI into more places like Office and Outlook and just the OS in general, that 16 is going to age out your machine a lot faster than it used to. To me, this is like a planned obsolescence kind of play. You can't get away with 8 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage because Windows Recall is stupid the way that they've implemented it. But 16 sounds so much better because that used to be the step up. I kind of feel 16 is now that minimum, like we used to treat 8 if you think you're going to nudge through any of these new services or any of these new products. Oh yeah, Malik, I can definitely see Geekom getting in there. I just feel, how do I want to phrase this? So mini PC manufacturers like Geekom, Ace Magic, Minis Forum, B-Link, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those tiers of manufacturers have found success taking 2 to 3 generation older laptop chips, putting them in a mini form factor desktop, and then selling that. So it's an older system, reduced performance against something current, but you can sell them at crazy low prices because so many of those manufacturers are just trying to get rid of their backlog of older chips. The only reason I think we see 12th gen Intel, 13th gen Intel, and current generation Ryzen 7s and Ryzen 9s are because there's kind of a panic spend happening right now. Like I said, OEMs like HP and Dell and Lenovo, they're all looking at marketing whatever's the newest and most excitingest and the AIest and the Copilot Plusest. We're seeing, man, shop some of those Lenovo deals. Stuff with like a 12th gen Intel, those prices are crashing. I saw a ThinkPad workstation that was like, this is normally a $2,000 laptop and it's like $800 now. And you're like, that is still a ridiculously powerful machine. I'm not interested in shopping an Intel laptop right now, but if you wanted it as kind of like a desktop replacement, oh boy, that thing's insane. So I think the only reason we're getting current gen chips in like Minis Forum and in Geekom is because they have access to a stockpile of chips that are kind of being devalued because of Microsoft's recent announcement. Unfortunately, I feel that means we're going to see kind of at least a 1-year cycle before the Geekoms and the Minis Forums really start jumping on ARM PCs, because all of the supply couldn't catch that cough, because all of the supply right now is going to the massive OEMs that can really scale and deliver products at quantity. So it's going to take a little bit longer for the Geekoms to find some supply that isn't ridiculously expensive. Because again, they can't buy at the same kind of quantity to get the same kind of preferred spending deals from Qualcomm. So I just think that's going to take a little longer to play out. But a company like ASUS, who's already buying chips in bulk for all of their laptops, will probably be able to work out a deal to say, hey, we also want to sell this in a mini PC configuration with the 84 and active cooling, and we can do this with 32 gigs of RAM. And Qualcomm's going to be like, yeah, cool, we'll give you more chips, give us more money. So they'll be able to buy at a much higher quantity than Geekom will be over the next year. And then hopefully Qualcomm can work out yield and really get more supply out into the ecosystem. And then it's good for everybody. Because I have to believe that by the end of this year, we're going to hear about an AMD play. AMD is kind of working with ARM on some designs and what the ARM configurations look like. AMD could use their chiplet design capabilities to make some really interesting ARM-based APUs. We've seen rumors that MediaTek is working with NVIDIA. And if MediaTek is working with NVIDIA, then what I think we'll see is a great combination of ARM reference cores, the Mali GPU as the integrated GPU, and then an NVIDIA chip, like a low power RTX, I would want to see something like a 4060 equivalent as a discrete GPU tacked on also, working consistently across that, the same way that we have gaming laptops today that have both integrated graphics from the CPU and a discrete GPU. By the end of this year, we're going to see more competition in this space, Qualcomm won't be the only player for long. They're only going to be the only player for a couple months. Their exclusivity deal with Microsoft ends at the end of 2024. Michael Corcoran, Lenovo and HP have some Surface Pro clones that usually come with the keyboard included and are more cost effective. And that's always been one of the interesting questions, things like who's paying for the R&D? So if you believe the people on Deep Background and who kind of dig into the rumors and the leaks on how all of these corporate plays work out, like some of the designs that we see, like things like the Surface Neo, according to people on the internet, and I don't know how true this is, the Neo kind of failed, and Microsoft hasn't tried to replicate that design because a large part of it was also Intel R&D reference designs. And so Lenovo and HP might be able to sell an Intel-powered Surface Pro clone if Intel is paying into the development of that product as sort of a collaboration, which reduces the R&D costs for Lenovo and HP. This stuff gets wild, super complicated, and we'll never get clear insight on who did what with who and who paid for what with whom. So that's why I'm really hoping, like, in 2025, we get another Robo Ancala, we get a Geekom mini PC, we get some of these other frames that have already been established, and then we can work on getting the new chip in someone else's hardware, someone else's design. Oh, Al Sabakli, I think we're all in agreement there. I won't lie, 16 gig of RAM default and then silly price increases just to get to 32 across laptops is really my pet peeve. So I posted on the Patreon and I explained all my rationale for it, but I am gonna go with a Surface laptop as my main hero device to talk about X Elite and Windows 11. I feel like it's kind of appropriate just from the look of it. Like, Microsoft isn't working with me on this review. I'm not going to get a review unit. They stopped talking to me after the Surface Pro 9 SQ3. I was really mad. I got an email from Microsoft. I'm going to just go ahead and air my dirty laundry here. I got an email from Microsoft and they were like, hey, we need that Surface back. And I went, oh no, I sent it back to you a month after you sent it to me. And they were like, well, our records show that you still have one out. And so I go back through. The very first Surface Pro 9 I got had massive problems. It wouldn't charge, games were crashing, it showed like full battery, then it would drop like 20%. I mean, like, this thing was non-functional. And I messaged them like a week, because I only had it for a short-term loan. I messaged them like a week into it. And they're like, oh, well, let's send you out another one. And they sent one out, and it was the same kind of prepaid label in the box to ship it back. So I sent the first Surface back, but I sent it on the wrong label. So I get an email from them saying, hey, your Surface short-term loan is wrapping up. Please get in communication with us, and you can send it back. And that was for the first Surface that they sent out. So I lost a whole week, because I could have kept that Surface longer. And then I get an email from them like months later where they're saying like, oh, hey, yeah, if you've been using it and you want to use it in any other follow-up videos or anything like that, just let us know and we'll work it out with you. And you're like, you mean for 6 months, I could have been using the Surface Pro 9 SQ3 and I didn't need to send it back to you, but now your records show I haven't sent it back to you because I used the older label instead of the newer label to send back the first one. This is so frustrating. So it took like a week of me working back and forth with their order fulfillment team just to show, here are the UPS labels you generated. Here are the receipts from those labels. I saved the receipts just to show you I dropped this off at the shipping place. And then they're finally like, oh, okay, well, cool. Thank you for helping us sort all that out. And this whole time, I could have been using that as like another comparison point, and that would have been fine. So anyway, I reached out and I heard nothing back from Microsoft about X Elite. They don't need a channel like me at all. when it came to an ARM chip in a Surface Pro 9, well, that was exotic. Let's get some other people with medium-sized channels saying nice things about us. But X Elite is going to be so overwhelmingly popular as a search term. They can just get the big YouTube channels. They don't need someone like me. So that was your little behind the scenes there. Again, now I'll probably never work with Microsoft ever again. Oh man, it's so funny. Oh, Barry Johnson, I'm trying to decide on a Surface or a Surface laptop. I just love the look of the Surface. I know, superficial reason. So I'm going Surface laptop, if only because I feel like the more traditional laptop form factor is going to be a closer comparison to the fanless systems that I tested while TK and I were down in San Diego. And my dream, this is my goal, I want to see if I can take a laptop and replace my current workflow. So it's not an upgrade, it's a side grade. But I want to see if I can replace my current workflow with this massive workstation chassis that's under my desk with a second generation Threadripper and an RTX 4070 Ti and just go to a laptop. So the Surface Pro, imminently better portable machine. For like working on the go, I would point people more towards Surface Pro. But a huge part of what I'm looking to do in my coverage, just for kind of telling my own story, is will it replace my desktop? And for that, I think I kind of need the more traditional laptop form factor. Also, I just think it would be really exciting if I could do triple monitor. So I've got the two displays that I have here, but then also the laptop display is kind of like a centerpiece for moving things around. So that's kind of why I'm going laptop, but I wish I could come up with a solution that made more sense where the Surface Pro was that machine. Because with my Robo and Kala, I love the tablet. I love the portability of that. I love just, it's so good. And it's so much better than trying to do more computery things on an Android tablet or on an iPad. But for the practicality of working here in my office, I'm kind of doing the more responsible grown-up thing. Nick Gay is saying, I'm still skeptical with ARM reference designs being good enough for Windows. Qualcomm and Apple needed custom core designs. Are ARM's designs good enough? Nick, that is a question that I'm not sure you know what you're asking. What we're talking about is compute power. Right now, like what phone would I want to hold up? Right now, in terms of CPU performance, this is the Vivo X100 Pro. According to Geekbench, if you run their series of tests, they are comparable. The scores are comparable between mobile devices and like laptops and desktops. This scores roughly in line, and the multi-core slightly outperforms a 12th generation Core i7 U-series laptop processor. It's compute power. That's what we care about. We care about compute power. So now, when you make an ARM application for a product like this, that native code, ARM cores to ARM design to ARM software, it's compute power. So it is performing kind of like you have a Core i7 in your pocket. Now, if I take x86 software and I run it on this, well, obviously I need an emulation layer. So if you're on an Android phone, you can get astoundingly good x86 performance emulating x86 through an app like Winlator. So we don't blink at this. You want to run game consoles on this thing? I can emulate a PS3 with that funky cell processor. It runs really well. This thing is going to ridiculously outperform a Nintendo Switch playing Nintendo Switch games through emulation. And now we're at a point where running full-blown Windows programs through Winlator in emulation on this is a little bit less powerful than a 12th generation Core i7 U series processor on something that fits in your pocket and has no fans. That's what we care about. That's it. That's the game. Whether or not we think, oh, but is this an Orion core or an ARM core or what's going on? Compute power. I care about compute power. I genuinely, at this point, do not care what form factor the compute power is. I should be able to do whatever I want with the compute power. I should be able to use it in any way I want. If I plug this into a portable monitor and I fire up Winlator, I have an x86 computer in my pocket. That's all I care about. So the recent update to Windows helped improve x86 emulation performance, so there's less of a performance deficit, but there's still always going to be a little bit of a hit, just like there is on a Mac. If you run x86 software on a Mac, the emulation is great. Small performance hit. That's what we have to look at. That's what we have to consider. But this notion that like, oh, I don't think ARM designs are good enough, it comes down to compute power and cooling. So, you know what? I mean, there could be an efficiency argument. To your point there, whether or not the ARM reference designs are going to be good enough. Maybe it's similar compute power, but you need a slightly different fan curve. But all of the X Elite chips that are coming out now are going to be put into laptops and tablets that have active cooling. So it's kind of like if I compare two mini PCs and one is an AMD machine and one is an Intel, the Intel fans spin up more aggressively, but under load, both of those systems, the fans are running. So it's an efficiency difference, and the AMD machine will run a little bit quieter, a little bit longer, but both of them are eventually going to need cooling. So that's where we're at. Whatever ARM's doing with X4 cores and X5 cores for the next generation of reference designs, I know Orion is really exciting because it's getting us this Qualcomm push, but I don't think ARM is going to be left behind. It's just going to be differences in application, core count, configuration, and then other complementary technologies like how do we grade GPU performance and how do we tack on RAM and how do we support other things like USB 4. Once we start getting USB 4 support, couldn't catch that cough either. Hold on, let me clear this. It's all kind of the same thing. We're talking about kind of the same thing. So it's really exciting right now. This is like a sea change in how we do portable computing. Nick, okay. You got me on that one, Nick. But Juan, if you don't have an x86 desktop, how will your legs stay warm? Yeah, you're totally right. In the winter, that's not going to be as good. I'll actually have to spend more money on electricity for like a heated foot warmer. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. This is so good. Alsa Bockley saying, I don't do any work on my Surface. It's a remote working platform. I don't do any work on my Surface. It's a remote working platform, a supremely versatile and light platform too, and surprisingly capable. I love the device to bits. I adore my Robo Ancala. The only thing it can't do well is video editing. And it can kind of do that if you fire up like a Linux video editing app. But it is just so capable. It does everything else better. And it's the dream that I had for things like Dex and Moto Ready 4, where Dex and Ready 4 get you so close to this, but you plug this low power device into another screen and then you get a proper windowed environment to work in. And then you pick up the Robo Ancala and you're like, we could have had this. We could have had this all along. We could have taken a phone chip and just severed the cellular radio and put that into a great consumer Chromebook. Imagine a Snapdragon 855 just without the LTE radio in a low power Chromebook. That thing is an order of magnitude more powerful than most consumer needs. Today, the Snapdragon 855 today is overkill power for a lot of people's communication, document, student work, web surfing, social media needs. That chip is 5 years old. That's how silly overpowered we're spending for portable computing right now. It's so rich. What it I know I'm putting a lot on this and I'm really trying to keep my expectations in check. But I need people to be more lit up about the idea that if I can get good DaVinci Resolve support on an X Elite system, and let's say that X Elite, is sort of traditional laptop power thirsty. It's probably going to have something in the box between a 60 watt and 120 watt charger, right? I believe the Dell, I think it's the Dell. The Dell lists that it comes with a 60 watt charger. That's a cell phone charger. But that system could go toe to toe at 60 watts, could go toe to toe with my second generation Threadripper with an RTX 4070 Ti, which has a 1200 watt power supply. I need people to be a bit more lit up about that. I'm going to go from a 1200 watt PSU to a 60 watt cell phone puck. How is that not so much more exciting for people? I do not get it. And once we kind of kick over the laptop part of this, look at all of the portable gaming consoles. Like my Steam Deck kind of needs about a 45 watt power delivery system, 45 watt charger. At 45 watts, the X Elite is substantially more powerful than the little AMD APU in my Steam Deck. Like, it's not close. It's a big jump. And if I could get that large of a performance jump while staying under the total power consumption target of the Steam Deck, how are folks not more lit up about that? I do not get it. This is where I know that because of algorithms on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, we're basically just fostering a community of brand fans, not actual people who get lit up about the tech. It's all the people in my comments who are like, no, but Intel does this with QuickSync and AMD has this with their APU, and they're Intel and AMD fans. They're not tech fans. They're just processor brand fans. So anyway, I'm really having a hard time keeping all this tamped down, because every time I start talking about it, I get like vomitous about how silly and exciting I'm hoping this will all be. And again, there's still the potential I might get this laptop and go, oh, you know what? It's actually not that good. I don't think it's likely, but that could still happen. Oh, Cedric, I just mean in terms of cost. What you say we should have absolutely had years ago too. Cedric says, I'm actually wanting the opposite of severing the cellular chip. I use my main phone, a OnePlus 12, and need a secondary connected device, currently using a V60 Plus and next dock with a large screen for my work truck. Now imagine you had a Surface Pro SQ3. Like a Surface Pro 9 SQ3 with a 5G radio in there is exactly what you need. What I'm saying is like the consumer costs for a good, really beefy, still more powerful than the average consumer needs for their notebook could have been satisfied 5 years ago with a Snapdragon 855. You put the Snapdragon 855 in a Chromebook, and that's huge performance for the majority of these low to medium cost Chromebooks. Then we can step up and just put the Snapdragon 855 into a full-fledged tablet-y 5G connected device, and that later evolved into the Snapdragon 8CX Gen 3, which is the Surface SQ3 chip. I hate how Microsoft changes the name of their chip. So yeah, what you're talking about, we should have been doing for years already. The fact that we're getting this stuff now and we still don't have like the cellular connection on these ARM chips is actually kind of disappointing. This is not radical new territory. This is the compute power we've always had. and the compute power we always should have been able to use in other various form factors. So Cedric, I mean, like, I'm getting really lit up, and I hope you are too. Like, you're finally going to be able to get the thing you always should have been able to have. It's taken 6 years longer than I thought it would, but we're finally getting there. This is hilarious. Oh, did I have the mic on while I was coughing? Ah, that's the worst. Sorry. I'm usually better about catching that. I thought I clicked on it and then I went ahead and coughed, and I guess I just didn't double check. Yeah, this podcast, the audio is going to be pretty off. Yeah, see, Dave Burns is always there to tell me how I did it wrong. Dang it. I went for the button and everything. Sorry. Yeah, human biology is pretty gross, especially when you're sick and it's gross. So, who wants to talk about Samsung's really bad week? Or do we want to talk about, I don't know. I mean, there was legislation about U.S. states are repealing their ISP anti-competition laws. This is a great one from John Brodkin, where another U.S. state repeals law that protected ISPs from municipal competition. So now there are only 16 states left in the United States where you can't compete with corporate broadband by setting up your own municipal broadband. That's a really big deal. If you go to Chattanooga, Tennessee, you'll spend like, what, $50 a month on gigabit, and then I think you can now go up to 10 gig. And that is community funded, and all the money goes back into the community because it's just a part of the deal that they worked out with the local power company. And that's what we all should have. We've paid for fiber to home several times over, but broadband companies keep getting these sweetheart deals to not get any competition. Oh, right on time for the Sammy news. Okay, so first off, I'm not a big fan of Samsung, so definitely don't take this as ridiculous schadenfreude on Juan's part. Oh, David, you're right. That is communism. Helping people get the things that they pay for and finding competition in the marketplace. You're right. That is communism. We should stop the communism and make sure that corporations don't face any competition and can make all the money they want without ever improving the services that they offer. So it's pretty great. Man, my voice is like not doing well. Okay. So, definitely no Samsung schadenfreude on my part. First up, it seems like the relationship between Samsung and Qualcomm is about as dead as it could be. This is coming from WCCF Tech. Samsung loses Qualcomm as one of its top 5 revenue sources as chipset maker shifts all major orders to competitor TSMC. I don't think there are any Qualcomm parts in pipelines that still utilize Samsung's foundry. So, like, they just announced an update to their gaming chip, whatever the is it the GX3 or the G3X or something like that? It's the refresh of the chip that's in the Razer Edge. So the Razer Edge is roughly as powerful as a Snapdragon 888, but with active cooling. The next one is basically a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 without all of the extra like camera components and stuff like that. That's a big jump going from an 888 to an 8 Gen 2. And I think we're going to see that in, is it an Aya Neo? Someone please correct me. We're going to see that in a gaming handheld very soon. Someone just announced that they were making a little sort of Game Boy style portable with that chip. Let me tell you, a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 is crazy performance for a little handheld gaming machine, especially in a more Game Boy-y style form factor. So it's tough. Samsung has committed billions and billions and billions of dollars into improving their chip fabrication and their foundries. They've been announcing like, well, we've got a 3 nanometer part, and we're going to be early on a 2 nanometer part. And companies are buying like test samples, but the yields are low, the prices are high, and Samsung still hasn't demonstrated that they can reach the same kind of efficiency as as Qualcomm can. So yes, these parts might perform the same, but then they use way more power to do it, which is not a good solution for a portable computing device. So that kicked off what was kind of not a great week of Samsung news, because then later, this is the really, really good one, really meaty, and I hope more people are going to start sharing this. Samsung, 404 Media has gotten some of the contracts from Samsung and how they do business with third-party repair shops. Samsung requires independent repair shops to share customer data, snitch on people who use aftermarket parts, leaked contract shows. Now, here's one where normally I flip out about clickbaity headlines, right? Like, oh, you made this sound way more serious than it is, and I don't find that to be of a high journalistic integrity. I might actually send a message. This is written up by Jason Kobler over at 404 Media. I might send them an email and just say, hey guys, you actually didn't make this headline serious enough, because it's not just Samsung sending your hardware data. It's not just Samsung demanding repair shops send your hardware data to them. A part of their service contract also includes company shall immediately disassemble all products that are created or assembled out of, comprised of, or that contain any service parts not purchased from Samsung, and shall immediately notify Samsung in writing of the details and circumstances of any unauthorized use or misappropriation of any service part for any purpose other than pursuant to this agreement. So it's not just, hey, we're going to take an accounting of the parts in your phone. Let's say you bust your Galaxy S10 screen and you just need a cheap replacement to get you by for a little while, and you pop in another just cheap screen that fits that frame. If you take that then to a repair shop to get any other work done, the repair shop has to, by Samsung's agreement, disassemble your phone, completely take it apart to get all of the details on how that repair was conducted. And then you're going to get pushback from that repair shop like, hey, you've got unauthorized parts in here. I'm not sure there's any, I can't replace your battery. You have an unauthorized screen. That is incredibly disgusting. Samsung is trying to be the Apple of Android phones in all the worst ways. Not in all the interesting competitive ways, not that Apple's being that competitive right now, but in all the let's make it as difficult for the consumer as we possibly can to keep their device running longer. Let's make it as expensive and as punitive as we possibly can. And then let's also make massive pain points on the repair shops so that they will be encouraged to only do business with the most expensive parts that only we can sell them, which is horrific, which is completely disgusting. And Samsung, like I've been saying about Apple, Apple's finally facing some DOJ scrutiny. Samsung is significantly overdue massive regulatory scrutiny, like a significant pushback to how they do business. They have become an incredibly scummy company to work with. Case in point, I really want people to read these articles, so I'm just kind of blowing through them here. I was so proud. It's weird to say I'm proud of iFixit, but I was so proud of iFixit because they did not go quiet. Scott Head over at iFixit just published a full-on blog post. We're ending our Samsung collaboration. And they list all of the reasons why this did not work out. And all of the unfulfilled promises from Samsung, all of the ways that Samsung does not do business in good faith, all of the ways that Samsung is working against right to repair initiatives, and that's a really bad look. It does not matter. It doesn't matter at all. If Samsung supports their devices for 5 to 7 years, Samsung is so good for consumers, they'll give you 7 years of software updates. Can you keep your phone running for 7 years? Because Samsung seems to be making it strategically and tactically difficult to do the basic stuff that will keep the hardware running long enough to get all 7 of your years of software support. The two go together. This is pretty gross, the way that they're doing this. And they're attacking on multiple fronts, at the consumer level, at the repair level, and at the parts distribution level. And they're not conducting business in good faith. It will not change so long as every Android stan out there treats Samsung as the de facto option in Android land. Samsung will not change their business practices until consumers really stop buying their phones and buy other Android devices. If Samsung only sees people leaving to go to Apple, they're just going to keep ripping off Apple's business practices. But if Samsung sees a significant chunk of people go over to a Google Pixel or a OnePlus 12 or a Motorola or a Vivo or a Xiaomi, if they see their competition is beefing up the Android side of this, then that's when Samsung will actually alter their business tactics here. It's not going to come from a bunch of people complaining about it and then going out and still buying Galaxy S series phones. That's not going to change Samsung's behavior at all. It's only going to reinforce why Samsung should keep doing this kind of business shenanigan. Let me take a drink of water here and we can catch some of these comments real quick. Dr. Claw 77, Sam Apple indeed. Let me get this out of the way. Sorry, I'm trying to clear my voice here. I'm way behind on the chat, so I'm having to scroll back up here. Geet Madden, my repair experience has been pretty bad even without third-party devices. They literally kept the device for days just to return it as saying they can't fix it. Oh, as it was saying they can't fix it. And that was also one of the issues with Shane. Shane Craig, Scary if Literal? Did I just forget his name? Isn't it Shane? It's Shane Craig. I think it is. Anyway, where his Pixel Fold screen split, and he sent it in twice, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry, we can't fix it," and then just canceled his repair orders, and then eventually sent him the phone back, and then he made a video about it, and then suddenly they were like, "Oh no, we can totally fix this thing." We are not living up to these lofty, aspirational, greenwashed versions of what corporations talk about. What's way better for consumers and way better for the environment is after 2 or 3 years of smartphone ownership, you don't buy a new phone, you put a new battery in it. And we have to know. Again, I want you to pay attention now. In the year of our techness, 2024, all of these companies are talking about improving software support and, oh, look at our repairs and we really care about our customers. In about another 2 years, we're going to see a wave of phones that are mandated to have more easily replaceable parts like batteries. If you don't drop and shatter your phone, the part that really burns out on you and really hampers the consumer experience is the battery. So starting, let's say, end of 2026, maybe the beginning of 2027, we need to start tracking from there that I believe there will be another significant downturn in smartphone sales as people get more comfortable with the ability to keep their current phone running better for longer. How many device manufacturers do you think have a strategy in place that will account for another downturn in smartphone sales in 3 to 5 years? I don't think any of them can work through it. I think all of them are going to freak out, and shareholders and investors are going to be upset. And oh no, the phones are making less money and consumers are buying fewer of them. Because that's already happening today. It's only happening today, though, that people are suffering with devices that are broken and devices that have worn out batteries, and they're just trying to keep them running longer and longer and longer, but they're not really getting the kind of hardware support that they really need. When it's easier for them to get the hardware support, they're gonna buy fewer phones. And I would hope that people in this chat are here for it. Think of all of your family members that don't need to go buy a new phone. The current phone they have would do them fine for years to come if it were properly supported and they could occasionally do things like refresh it with a new battery. I told you I was at my cousin's wedding and I'm talking to one of my uncles and I think he had an iPhone 11. Now I don't remember, but it was an older iPhone. He's not doing anything new on his iPhone. He needs nothing new from Apple. But you know, the device, it's running really slow, and I guess he could get a deal on it. He could go to his carrier and trade it back in. He'd have a monthly payment again. And I told him, Uncle Dan, go replace the battery. Everything you're describing, the phone is pristine too. He did a lot of engineering work and he worked for some pretty big tech and travel companies. But like, this idea had never crossed his mind. His phone is pristine. It's always been in a case with a screen protector. Like, he keeps it cradled. Like this phone is mint. But the battery is worn out. Uncle Dan, go get a new battery. It'll be like you have a brand new iPhone 11 again. Oh, that's a good idea. How much do you think the battery replacements are? I don't know, like $100? Oh, so I don't have to buy like a whole new phone. If you're not telling all of your family and friends this, I promise you, it is the most glorious feeling. If someone tells you there is something that they want and that their old phone can't accomplish it, bam, we've got crazy new powerful phones. We've got amazing new cameras. We can plug into monitors. You can connect game controllers and adapters. Let's do this. If it's that aunt who is like scrolling cat reels on Instagram, don't sell her a new phone. Don't let her buy a new phone. Help her fix up her current phone. And it's so tasty. It's so delicious. There are so few things in this world when you're talking to your family and friends who are not tech savvy than watching the little light bulb click on that I don't need to spend a lot of money and it'll still improve the thing that I currently have and it'll be like it was when it was brand new. Oh, that's good. That's real good. You can't get that with a car. It's not like, oh, my car's running kind of slow. Let me replace the gas tank and then the car will drive like it's brand new again. That's not a thing. This is unique to us being tech nerds, is that the simple replacement of a component like a battery is a huge upgrade after 3 years of phone ownership. It's phenomenal. Dr. Claw, yeah. That one was a tough one. He says, it reminds me of the hints Juan gave about dealing with Samsung at Pocket Now. That one made me really sad. And it was one of those things where we really did try to play ball. And I have huge respect for the crew that I worked with at Pocket Now, because I felt they did an incredible job of managing the balancing act of trying to appease Samsung PR while still trying to retain some of the journalistic rigor. Because we worked really hard on our coverage, we worked really hard on our reviews, and it was a pretty ugly fallout that we had with Samsung PR. And rebuilding that took so long. I know Pocket Now has gone through some rough... Actually, Pocket Now just got bought out again, didn't they? I think Pocket now is going to be under the How to Geek umbrella. They haven't published an article in like a month. And I think they've already moved over editors and journalists and writers to other websites under the same umbrella. And it makes me really sad. That was a name that meant a lot to me that I got to join that team. But it was so galling and it was so frustrating to be like smiley face, like, oh, we love everything Samsung, while trying to do a good enough job of talking pros and cons in competition and stuff that I've never been able to just let it completely sit. Like, I've always had this little venom, like, oh, in dealing with them, when you really see what they're like behind the scenes, this is not good. And it's similar. I can't tell you. You can go to the youtube.com right now and find dozens and dozens and dozens of major YouTube channels saying nice things about Apple. And then I don't feel it's appropriate for me to out those content creators, but talking to them about it behind the scenes on deep background and off the record, when you hear the stories of how they're treated at the Apple campus, the kinds of personalities they run into from Apple PR, and the demands sort of placed on their style of coverage, that is really scummy. And you get a completely warped and distorted view of what Apple actually does as a company and how they work with content creators and reviewers and influencers, and the incredible consideration they get from journalists because they don't want to lose access to important stories from Apple executives. But they're not getting access, they're just getting the executive to show up and repeat press release lines. But if they actually push back with hard questions, well, that's not in keeping with Apple's conversation right now. Like that outlet must have an agenda against Apple, so we just won't do business with them anymore. We just won't include them in our press releases or give them access to executives or let them come to WWDC. I mean, they can do whatever coverage they want. They can do whatever coverage they want. Apple's not silencing them, and Apple's not, trying to you guys know what I'm doing. I don't need to go through all of this, but it's pretty bad. Oh, Ali. Yeah, that's another one. No company is ethical if you dig deep enough, i.e. Samsung paid people to leave negative reviews on the HTC One M7 back in 2013. So I've got a really long podcast talking about all of my reasons for why I feel Samsung is kind of a scummy company. That one was bad. Then there was the one where they were impersonating local law enforcement to break up and do union busting activities. Samsung has done some scummy things in the past and gone after journalists, and those stories never get told because no one wants to be on the receiving end of Samsung's ire. I have a failing YouTube channel, so if I tell you all of this stuff, like, I don't know, there are 45 people watching right now. That's the reach I have in this moment. And I guarantee you, like, if I start doing a whole bunch of collaborative work, or if I sign on to be an editor or a reporter at another outlet, I'm going to have to toe the outlet's perspective. I won't be able to just tell you what I see happening all the time. So it's pretty dumb. It's pretty gross. But again, it's always like, you can look at Google. I am so disappointed in Google's overall search and AI philosophy. I think Google is trying to greenwash their environmental impact. Like, look at when they do, look at our Gemini servers are water cooled. Water cooling is a closed loop, and that helps with energy efficiency. But they're not staying at the same energy density in their data centers. They're using that cooling advantage to put more racks and actually increase the density. And so even though you've water cooled the server chassis, you still need to get rid of that heat, and the data center ends up consuming even more electricity and even more water. And the only way to go to the next phase of AI is to build more data centers. So I'm very disappointed in Microsoft, in Amazon, in Facebook, in Google, in Apple's upcoming AI play. We don't need more data centers telling us to eat glue. Oh, if you want to make a really tasty pizza, you just add glue. Or what was the other one? Here's what I don't get. They put this little, like, attribution. They attribute this data to like a tiny little link, but you do a search in Google and you get all these AI responses, and then you get a whole bunch of shopping links. It's like you have to go all the way down to the bottom of your search results to get actual websites. But we see Google's, actually, it's not fair to say Google. None of these AIs are cleverly repurposing verified information. They're just cutting and pasting out of websites. And we know this because we saw that one like funny screenshot that was being passed around where I think it was Google search telling people, to stay healthy, you need to eat one small rock a day. And in the AI summation, it's literally just copy pasted from an Onion article. An Onion joke article. I think it was a geologist at Berkeley said that to stay healthy, you need to eat one small rock every day. There was no changing it a little bit so that it wasn't an outright copy. It was just copy paste from that joke Onion article. So this isn't even clever. It's not even language learning model repurposing of language. It's just ripping off websites on the media, on the internet, and pasting that information from those websites. It's not even what they promise. It's not even what they claim it is. And what they claim it is isn't even that exciting. Oh, we'll sum up your search for you. How about you just give me the websites that did the actual work and I could go read from the people that really did the work? Oh, but this is going to be faster. And then when I search for something like the best pizza recipe, you tell me to put glue in my pizza cheese. Because someone on Reddit made a joke about that, and your AI is too stupid to know what's satire. Because it's not intelligence. It's just the next evolution of your predictive text keyboard, spell check and grammar check. And that's all it is. So I don't understand how there's not already been, like the Onion should take that screenshot and go to an attorney general or to the DOJ or to the FTC and say, look, this isn't even a summation. They just copied our joke and they're telling it to people like this is actual like life advice, but this is just copy paste. We did not authorize them to just replicate our joke in their search results. That should be enough to start an inquiry into outright copyright theft. But it's not, because Google's a multi-trillion-dollar corporation. So I've been really disappointed with that. But throughout all of this, I've actually been really encouraged by some of the improvements to like their hardware team. Like the Pixel's in pretty good shape. The Pixel Watch 2 was a nice upgrade over the Pixel Watch 1. And this is where we've got to compartmentalize. Like Apple, almost nothing Apple is doing do I find interesting as like a full-fledged consumer-facing product. The last time I think I got excited about an Apple product was the Apple Watch. Apple Watch showed us like, okay, we can really clean this up. We can make this nicer. For where we were in different smartwatches, like Apple Watch got me kind of lit up. I really liked the Apple Watch experience almost enough to keep using an iPhone just because of the watch experience. The only thing Apple's done since then that's gotten me lit up has been the Apple ARM chips, their M series chips. What they did helped kick off a sea change in portable computing. I'm never going to buy a MacBook. I'm never going to buy an iPad Pro. Those are not devices for me. But just it validated what I've been saying for 6 to 7 years now. An ARM chip in a portable computer makes so much sense. It's stupid we haven't been doing it all this time. And then Apple went and did it. So I'm actually very encouraged by that. The M series processors are incredible work. I just wish they weren't inherently tied to a corporation that I felt was doing terrible things to their customers and to the market at large and acting in their own interests to harm competition. That's the problem that we keep running into with a lot of these brands. It's like one division of the company, I can be really excited about what they're doing, but then I'm not really encouraged by the executive leadership at all of these companies that are chasing AI because shareholders told them to. I need to see a company come out and say, hey, we're leading with vision. This is the purpose and this is the direction we're going to go. And we're going to make a ton of money doing it. As I promise you, the cloud storage data center version of AI is not going to be the moneymaker. It is way too expensive to build all of those servers and to build all of those data centers and pay for all of the electricity and fight local municipalities on water rights to keep everything cool. It is way too difficult to dump that much money. And then, like, what are you going to do? You're going to sell like subscription plans to people? Like, oh, here's your Apple One subscription with AI, and you add $2 a month. Where you've spent hundreds of billions of dollars on infrastructure, how long is it going to take to be profitable on the AI play when you're like, $3 a month gets you Siri plus AI? That's not money. That's not revenue. If you're a shareholder or you're an investor and you think AI is the hot stuff, you're an idiot. You're so stupid. It's like it's like NFTs that are even worse for the environment is what AI is doing to us right now. David Burns, you can't spell aspirational without a $sign. Yeah, you kind of right, got me there. Yeah, Simon says Hypno. Thankfully, Shane's situation with the Pixel Fold was solved, but what would have been the case if he were Joe Schmo? And I like again, I need to meet Shane in person and give him a hearty handshake with eye contact because he made that exact same point. If he hadn't had a respectably popular middle-sized YouTube channel that focused on the consumer experience of foldables, he would never have gotten the same kind of attention or consideration from support. I'm way behind on the chat. Way behind on the chat. Let me scroll all the way back down to this like most recent stuff, but then I should probably start looking at wrapping this up because I've already gone a little longer than I think my voice should. From Ali, just imagine you have to pay for Siri and Google Assistant. How much do we want to bet that there is some AI play where we have to pay to not get AI results? Like maybe the business model isn't, we've got this amazing AI and you have to pay $5 a month to use it, but it's so many people are not using it that they're like, okay, well, we're going to put the AI front and center in your face, and then you have to pay us $5 a month if you just want to go to the regular internet without the AI in your way. I wonder if you would make more money as a company negging your customers into that kind of business practice. Oh, Michael Corcoran, yeah. I'm sure Google and Microsoft and Meta and so on will be lobbying cooperatively to prevent any restrictions on AI. I don't know if it will be the same CES lobby or a new one for LLMs. And I bet you they'll do that. They'll hide behind a lobbying firm that is working on all of these companies' behalf, but that way it's not Google's gone to the White House to try and convince the president that liberal AIs need to be the wokeness, and instead it's going to be like this like think tank group that's just taking millions of dollars from all these different companies to then go to all of the individual elected officials and say, hey, you're going to do this for AI or we're going to support your opponent's campaign with a whole bunch of campaign contributions because there's no restrictions on us just fueling super PACs against you, and we've got a lot of money. So that's great. Let's see. Yeah, because again, Michael Corcoran, the way campaign finance worked in the U.S., I'm very skeptical that Congress regulators will do anything here. Maybe in Europe, but it's ridiculous that we keep having to rely on them. I'll be curious to see if the Apple DOJ case moves the needle on some of the local scrutiny of these companies, because Google just faced down another DOJ case. Apple is facing one. these companies are not as popular as they used to be. And I think there's enough self-preservation instinct for a lot of our elected officials that they don't necessarily want to be tied to the campaign contributions of these tech brands right now. They want the money, but they don't necessarily want to be tied to what that money represents. So again, it's all the optics, and it's all the PR and the campaigning and the marketing. That's what really moves the needle on this stuff. And again, like we've been saying for years, someone could come out with the bestest, coolest, most awesomely supported, powerfulest smartphone tomorrow. And if they don't spend $5 billion marketing it, it's not going to be cool enough. And all the tech reviewers will kind of shrug it off and, oh, it's good at this, and I guess if you want something different, you could maybe consider that. But no, everyone's going to buy an iPhone. It's all marketing. It doesn't matter. There is no meritocracy in the performance or the capabilities or the reality of what this marketplace looks like. So that's pretty gross. Not great. But Darren Moore, and we're trying to. I mean, look at what happened with Scarlett Johansson. Darren says, imagine slapping an AI with a DMCA, LOL. But again, what happened there? It's kind of like what we were just talking about with Shane and with Google. We've been complaining about Google search results destroying traffic to smaller websites. I've talked about this numerous times where a website will come out and say, hey, look, as search has changed, people are still getting our information, but they're not coming to our site. And now we see Google search AI initiative is to suck up all this information and then just hand it to you with no payment or web traffic going to the websites that actually created that information. So we've been complaining about this for the last year. We've been showing good data and trends and marketing and analysis, and people are sort of vaguely upset about it, but nothing's really changed. But then it comes out, ChatGPT has this new voice called Sky, and it sounds a little bit like Scarlett Johansson. And the internet explodes that ChatGPT ripped off one famous woman. A whole year of us saying AI is basically just copyright stealing all of our content. Well, yeah, that's kind of a bummer, but you know, you're poor, so we don't really care about you. Oh, but Scarlett Johansson's voice is kind of being mimicked by this new ChatGPT. Look at how ridiculous and thieving AI is. Because she's famous, and all of the people whose content have already been ripped off, they're not famous. So F them, right? It's the incongruity of response. It's the inconsistency with which we approach harm being done to people who are far more vulnerable and don't have the resources to defend themselves and can't deliver their message with the same kind of megaphone as Scarlett Johansson. That's now our threshold. Do you want an actual outcome that better supports the artist? Well, then you kind of need to be a celebrity. If you're already famous, then people will take copyright thefts seriously. But if you're not, well, it's kind of your fault because you're poor. If you weren't poor, I would care. But you are poor, so we don't care. On that note, I hope everybody's having a lovely Memorial Day, not Labor Day, Memorial Day weekend. Oh my God, I'm so bad. Hold on one second. That's not the weird kind of riff or tangent. I really was actually kind of expecting someone to be like, oh my gosh, X-Men 97 was rad. And then we would just talk about movies and TV shows for the whole episode. Folks, we got some cool stuff coming to the channel. I've got so many laptops and phones, and I'm playing with these Gunners and some headphones that I can't show you just yet. I want to do a roundup on smartwatches. Like, I need my voice to just flip and heal already because I'm actually behind on shooting the stuff I want to shoot because I physically cannot talk enough to get it all done. So, if you are here in the United States and celebrating a Memorial Day weekend, I hope you're doing so in a safe way and that you're spending some time eating some great food with people who care about you. And if you're not in the United States celebrating Memorial Day, I would still recommend just piggybacking. Just have a party just to have a party. I'm a big fan of have a party of like celebrating just anything, anything that's coming up. So, break out the grill and do up your favorite foods and have some people over or break some bread, and it's really lovely. I spent the whole weekend just listening to my daughter tell me stories about unicorns and what's going on in school and how she's anxious about third grade. And I just let her talk. And it was really great to kind of unplug for a couple days and share those experiences. I gave her one of my nice cameras and she just shot a whole bunch of photos, and some of them are really, really good. I don't know. I'm finding more and more of those opportunities are necessary just to see another person and talk to another person and eat with another person. And maybe a day like Memorial Day, the reason behind a Memorial Day maybe gets lost behind some of the celebration of that day. But really, my dad is retired Air Force, and my grandfather was retired Army as a communications officer in World War II. And I think for both of them, and I can't speak for every member of the military, but I think for both of them, those two men who were hugely influential and the kind of guy that I wanted to be when I grew up, I think both of them would look at a Memorial Day with people grilling and barbecuing and having a good time and sitting out by the pool and laughing and joking and drinking and eating as the success. That would be the proper way to honor all of the sacrifices that our armed service members deal with. And I would hope that that's shared by more people in the military, not to make light of what a Memorial Day should be, but to also acknowledge that our ability to have a backyard barbecue on Memorial Day is because of their sacrifices, that we should do that. That should be what helps bring us all together to tell that story and to keep up with that history. So, hope everybody has a lovely Monday. I hope you have an awesome week. I hope you get to do awesome with your technology. I hope you get to be awesome with your technology. And I'll catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show in the proper structure and format. It'll probably be another short show if my voice is still blown out, but we'll have news links and gadgets and all this other fun stuff to talk about. Be safe. Take care of yourselves so you can keep taking care of others as the awesome tech neighbors I know you are. And I'll see you back here next week. I love you all. I'll catch you back.